Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Hey folks, how have you all been? Welcome to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. Today our program is How Do You Lead? And we have with us Christine Campbell Rapin. I hope, Christine, I pronounced your name correctly.
You did a great job.
Fantastic. So Christine is a sought-after sales and revenue strategist. She helps entrepreneurs turn cold leads into high-paying, loyal clients. Oh, we all need that, don't we? Known for her direct, no-fluff approach, she teaches effective frameworks that simplify sales and turns conversations into conversions without pressure, gimmicks, or wasted ad spend. That is amazing. Don't we all want to save some money? Uh, Blending mindset, messaging, and modern follow up systems, Christine equips business owners to attract the right prospects, build instant trust, and win premium clients consistently. Her audiences leave with clear, actionable strategies that elevate revenue, improve lead quality, and create predictable, sustainable growth. Fantastic. There are so many questions here that pops up. Welcome, Christine, to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. How do you lead?
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Lovely. I am so grateful to have you here myself because I don't think I have had a sales strategist with me. So this would be a nice change for us to have a sales strategist and a mentor. I heard, if I remember right, you are a mentor, and a mentor in my program is absolutely novelty. So this is going to be great.
Thank you. Yeah, I do see coaching and mentoring is collaborative and separate. And I would, if you asked, I would say I'm a mentor first, coach second.
Lovely. So let's begin with asking you a question on, you have spoken about, you have given in your introduction, and the one that I have right now said, I have used the word no fluff, which I got from your introduction, and also about effective frameworks. So what is a no fluff approach?
So one of the things that I think holds so many business owners back is the pervasiveness of shiny objects, things that are filled with sizzle, billion-dollar promises, no effort required, and boy, are people buying it. And I often say to my peers, to potential clients, and to my clients, beware of sizzle without substance. When it comes to building business, business is not new. Even the current economic climate and what it takes to win in it is not new. We have to go back to the foundations. We have to go back to people-powered conversations. We have to go back to understanding that in a noisy environment, we have to have structure, we have to have priority setting, and we have to be problem solvers. None of those things are sizzles, but they do build the foundations which lead to the results that are really amazing and can be incredibly powerful. So I am known as a straight talker. I'm like, this is what it takes to win business. I've worked with more than 400 companies in my career, everything from freelancers and solopreneurs and side hustlers to people that are building multi-million-dollar businesses in some of the biggest companies on the planet. And together, what I know is how to take somebody through marketing, sales, and systems so what they can create, I call a client growth engine, and it works. We've seen more than $1 billion in revenue with our clients. And yet people are like, but the world is new and I need to do SEO or AEO, or I need to do this, content, and I need to be on 12 billion platforms and I need to do all these things. And I'm like, how about we simplify things? Because elegant simplicity is actually more effective than all of the shiny objects that are running rampant right now. And I think if you could do the right things in the right order, you would be far more effective in your outcomes. And wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh, I love a no fluff approach. I believe in straight talking myself. So I think we are birds of the same feather, which I find really nice to have. So, talking about effective frameworks, you just spoke about, doing one thing after the other. There's a process to follow. What are the effective frameworks, or what, how is it that, how do you teach those effective frameworks?
So the first thing was by observation in working with clients across the world, across industries, across from, again, number of headcounts in all different varieties. I believe that there are 5 foundations every business on the planet builds, and you have to have them. And that's what we start with, the foundation piece. The first is you have to understand who is a buyer, a customer, a client, like what actually is a decision maker for your business. And I think that gets super complicated. Marketing has sold you ICPs and client avatars and all these other things, which I'm like, no, 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 dial it back. We're talking to decision makers. The second piece is you have to have an intentional pathway that will move somebody from I'm curious to tell me what it's like to invest with you to create that outcome. There are so many tactics in marketing. If you've heard of it, it works. But doing a million tactics, if it's not the right tactic for you and you're not great at it, will not lead you to the result you want. So I think we have to build a strategy first and choose a single or 1 to 2 tactics. Don't do a million things. It's not helpful. The third piece of this is you have to understand that you must be seen as a must hire, not just a likable expert. And what matters most is what the buyer perception is, what they need to think, feel, and see in order to be confident giving you a credit card or a PO or some form of payment. The fourth is a leadership piece. You have to understand that you must lead 3 groups of people at any given time, even as a self-employed human. Number 1, lead yourself. Number 2, lead your clients to the results they promised themselves they would create by hiring you. And third is influence. It could be advocates, team members, or other people, but other people who play in your outcome. And the fourth is math, business fundamentals, KPIs, and data. And I think the challenge for most people when they start businesses, because I work with the emerging entrepreneur building the first million, is you don't understand these 5 frameworks. And you don't create them until you're years into the business and typically tens of thousands of dollars into shiny objects. And I said, let's start with the principles first, and then let's understand how they integrate. And more importantly, will integrate for you to be your playbook, to be the way you want to grow, so that you end up with a business that's successful by your own standards, and you know how to adjust your speed to manage the complexity of your life, people, because you're in the people business, and really create predictable, consistently positive results. And I think nobody talks about this at the beginning of business. And that's the gap I fill. We take people through the foundations. We first tell you what they are. We help you build them. We help you refine them. And then we help you win with them predictably.
Oh, that's a lot of work, Christine. I can almost, when you are telling me and I'm visualizing one step after the other, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's hours and hours of work and a lot of homework for you to do to be able to pass it down to your client. So tell me the kind of clients that you usually work with.
So we have two kind of things that you're looking for clients that really succeed in our areas. The first is they're clear that they want to create commercial success with their business. And it feels like I shouldn't need to say that, but truthfully, a lot of people don't really get clear on what does commercial success look like? What kind of revenue? What kind of profit? What kind of complexity, i.e. how many customers are serving, how we're serving them. But you have to decide that you're doing this not because it's fun, when I hope it's fun, but that's not the goal. The goal is I want to create clients out of this. That's the first piece that is essential. The second piece to this is that you're really clear. You don't just want to buy a job. You actually want to create something that is enduring, something that has longer term value. And you want to know that if you want to step out of the delivery, take a vacation, take some elements of life, that your business doesn't stop immediately because you're holding it all together. So we always ask clients to be past those 2 considerations before it makes sense to invest in, as you say, it's actually, it's a journey to building repeatable success. You can't just start from day 1 and get it all right. but you can build this quickly, but you need somebody to show you the steps.
Right. And that is how you mentor?
Yes. Yeah, we take people through as simple as things as a 30-day program where we're going to help you just do the activity. And if you need some of the nuts and bolts first, we can take you there in 12 weeks in our Momentum to Millions program. And that gives you the foundations to know how to start, who to talk to, what to say, and then start building you the habit of what to do every day of your business. And at that point, if you follow through on the commitment and promise you made yourself, you'll start to see great qualified leads, more sales conversations, and more one business.
Perfect. Right. So, Christine, this is what you're doing right now. Let's go back to the time when you started your career. How did you start your career?
So I did know that I would play in the world of business from a really young age, and I have 2 degrees in the world of business that got me started in this pathway. I didn't initially think I would be an entrepreneur, and it truthfully was many years before people kept saying to me, I always thought you would be one. And I'm like, really? But I started my early career in marketing, and what's been unique about my corporate career, the life before this chapter, is that I was successful in multiple different job roles. And I don't mean job titles. I was starting my career in tech, in startups, with IT related services, but I was marketing them. But I eventually got kicked out of marketing because I kept saying it has to be more than pretty. Don't sell me on the pretty factor, it's a given. And I found myself in sales because sales needed marketing to do something, not just look good. And then I spent many, many years in many different environments, in many different industries in sales. And eventually what I realized was so often we would not deliver what we'd promised. And my core value is integrity. And I was not okay not delivering to customers who put faith and trusted me that they would get an outcome we had delivered or promised to deliver. So I then found myself in operations, right in the weeds. And what I found with people who are in the system side or the operation side or in the people side is they're often not at the table when marketing and sales is busy empire building. And my ability to build relationships, my ability to understand how things connected helped shape my career, and it helped give me the skills I have now. But the first big leadership lesson I learned was right out of the gate of university. I was hired for a tech startup. I was receiving a really strong performance review. I was hitting all my KPIs and my key responsibilities, but I found myself fired because of an affair in my leadership team. And nobody in business school prepared me for the politics of a boss who had an affair with a subjugate employee. And so I had to make this decision as I had a heartbreak and tears, and this was never covered in school, conversation with my parents, that my parents said, you get to decide what kind of woman leader you will be. You get to decide how you care for people. And this is a really important lesson that will define your path. And it absolutely did.
Okay, so there were challenges. That's what I'm hearing. A lot of challenges that
Just
you
a few.
had that were out of syllabus. So let's cover those challenges. What were those challenges that actually made you an entrepreneur?
So the first was a leadership recognition that not everybody sees the world as you see it, and that people are the hardest bit of business and the most rewarding. You know, when I've had my amazing moments in leadership, when I've had good collaborative partners, strong advocates, and been a great champion for others, there have been equal moments where what was on the jar wasn't as advertised. And for me, what it had taught me as an entrepreneur is you get to choose how you show up. You can hope other people play by the same values you have, but there won't always be 100% overlap. And so navigating conflict, navigating differences of opinions, navigating mixed priorities or unclear expectations doesn't happen once in a while. It happens every day. And so it has shaped my intentionality around be present, clarify, communicate, recommunicate, have a frank conversation, and be really open to the other person's perspective. The thing that my career has taught me is the importance of people. And I don't mean systematics, because I think that's such a common thing today, but get in the room, answer your phone, pick up the phone, and really do the people conversation, because you will find a richer experience, and it will also be the thing that drives your fastest evolution.
Fantastic. I can hear the word people, and I'm listening that it's, and as I'm listening, I find that a people connection is one of your ingredients in your
100%.
secret sauce. So that, how did you realize that it was the people factor that, what really happened that made you realize that people factor was the most important factor?
I think it came through when I was in my corporate career in a job search. Because I have had a really eclectic career. I've worked in multiple industries, 9 of them in the corporate space. I've held roles in marketing, sales, and systems. When the technology capabilities of the internet and the .com and the boom that came through it, and I worked through the .com, here's a fun fact for you. I know you're a systems and tech advocate. I built, as a startup founder, one of 5, 1,000-page websites from the day we launched it in 1996. Like, it's mind-boggling to think about what we did back then. Most people don't have a 1,000-page website to this day. But what I learned was that when tech became capable, it removed the human. But I was never going to be a traditional hire. I hadn't spent all my career in one job. I hadn't spent all my career in one city. I hadn't spent all my career in this very scripted box that tech wanted to put me in. And when I was at a job search where I wanted to change geography, I wanted to move thousands of miles away, I knew that it wasn't going to be because I applied online. It was going to be through the power of relationships. And what I learned early, and I tested, trialed, and succeeded at, was being able to talk to somebody. So first, pick up the phone. And secondly, be able to communicate my value as it could be applied to somebody else who needed that win. And I took a job as a vice president in a pharmaceutical company where I was running 3 different countries. And I was able to walk into the role without the same industry experience, because I could say, I know how to do this much really, really, really well. So if you need to stabilize this piece of the puzzle, I'm a good bet. I'm also aware that I don't know the rest. So if you bet on me, I know I have to do good by you by building those bridges, building those relationships, seeking to understand, not expect it to be a crutch or a gap for long. And people did bet on me. And that's helped me today to see the world more flexibly, because I think right now so many great talents are not being able to be qualified or connected to great opportunities because the tech is constraining a great match that might not make sense on paper, but makes sense from curiosity, connection, and values. And so it was a job hunt that helped me realize, be the advocate, build the relationships. It will never be second if you really want to win.
While I'm listening to this, while I'm listening to what you just shared, I also recall you just mentioning about your parents saying that, it's for you to decide what environment you want to work with. So how did they play a role in your career? 1. 2 is, what was your childhood like, which made you become the leader you are today?
Well, the first thing, I'm very grateful to have 2 incredible parents that have really shaped the way I see the world, and I think in positive ways. The lens I see that is positive as a net. And, when I stood on some big decisions, my parents taught me to be curious first, I had a childhood where we moved a lot as a family, so I was often put into new environments, and those moves were driven by my dad's career. As my dad's career progressed, our family moved locations, and that meant I was learning new sports, new schools. I learned to be an extrovert. That's not my natural strength because I was always concerned I wanted to have friends by recess because it's hard to make friends, and it's a skill that I now have as an adult because of that childhood. But my parents said, when you evolve, you get to decide what chapters you keep and what chapters become stepping stones. And in my career, when I've had setbacks, I remember I was about 25 years of age at the time. I was living in a different city than my parents. I pursued my career in a different geography. And I phoned my parents to tell them I had been given a job opportunity I hadn't set out to apply for. Someone in my network called me and said, I have the perfect job for you. I'm like, I don't need a job. I have one. And they said, I have something that might change your mind. And when I phoned my parents to talk about this unexpected plot twist, my dad said, wow, you've had more jobs in your career than I have my entire 45-year career. Are you ever going to stick with something? He didn't quite mean it, I don't think, very positively. But I said, this stepping stone creates a skill and an opportunity that I think it's worth pursuing. So in net, I think my parents taught me to trust myself. They taught me to decide what pieces to keep into the next chapter and what to shed. And they also made it really clear, because I've moved around so much, you have to look after you. And what that meant from a perspective was, if you want it, ask for it. If you can build it for somebody else, gift it. And I'm very grateful for those lessons, because whenever I stand at a crossroads, I think about the lessons of leadership my dad and my mother would sit down and have shared with me, which is, you get to decide who you are. You get to decide how you show up, and you will not always be understood, but you've got to like yourself. And at the end of your day, I happen to be faith-based. And my parents always said, at the end of the day, you take stock with, your maker, and you look back upon the day and say, were you proud of the person you were? Did you treat people with kindness? Did you show up with your values? And if you fall short, because you will, I have on many occasions, the ask is, I hope I get gifted another day. And if I do, then I show up with good intent on that day. And that's created a life that I think feels like oxygen to me.
Absolutely. So what I'm also hearing is that there is an authentic self in yourself, in you, that really comes through your leadership. Am I right? Because I don't know
thank you.
I don't know you
compliment.
that well, and we haven't really met in person for me to, but the more you're sharing, the more I can see an authentic self coming up, coming through. And that, I think, is what has been, passed down from your parents.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I will tell you a moment where I had in my crossroads, because you'll probably have a giggle about it, because it's shocking enough to be true. One career plot twist, I found myself let go from an organization that I did not see coming. And I was asked to execute something, and I did it really well. And then I got to fall on the sword that I executed. And a couple weeks after the moment of impact, someone who had worked for me called me, and I hesitated to take the call because I was like, I'm not sure if I'm brave enough. I'm still really rattled by this reality that I was in. And I thought, no, answer the call. Maybe it will cheer you up. Maybe, it's just nice to be cared for. And it was not the phone call I expected, because she said very quickly in the conversation, nobody was backfilled for your job. And I'm like, great. So they fired me without a replacement? I'm not sure which is worse. And she said, I'd like to be the replacement. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? You have the audacity, when I'm hardly breathing, to ask me to help you get the job I just got fired from? Wild. And then I sat there in a moment, and I could hear my parents in my head. And I said, what kind of leader do you want to be? The kind of leader that the organization headquarters thought you were, that was not a good fit for the culture and the direction they wanted to go, and let you go? or the kind of leader your team thinks you are that knows you'll take this phone call, you'll help her get the job. And I had to sit there and said that ship sailed. That's not my job anymore, but I can support her. And I chose to do that, and I did help her successfully get the job. Unfortunately, she didn't hold it for forever because she also found herself tossed in a similar pattern. Leadership always runs the same play, in case you need to be aware of that. And it was a moment of, to your point, I'm glad I was me in that moment and helped her.
Fantastic. You have been working now for a lot of years, and you have an expansive career, especially as an entrepreneur too. And what are the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur today?
I think the biggest challenge we all faced is recognizing the difference between being an employee and being the entrepreneur. And so when I first started this journey, I do work with mentor. I pay mentors to mentor me. So I always, walk my talk, but I hire mentors that help me see when I need to fire myself. There's times when it's like, I should lead myself to do the work, and I will get distracted, I'll hide, I'll avoid, I make it endlessly hard. And I hire people who have strong, good business work ethic that say, if you want the results, shut up and do the work. And it's important that I have that in my corner, because I have been both the employee and the solopreneur and a business that leads other people. And I have to really think to myself, what role am I playing here? And sometimes I'm a really great employee and sometimes I'm not. And I always have this in the back of my head that says, if this was an employee and you were the boss in corporate, how would you handle that? And I'd be like, frank conversation, performance improvement plan if necessary, or I'd remove them if ultimately it didn't change. And sometimes I have to remind myself, yes, that's why you have to work Saturday, because you dogged it all week, darling. Go and pay the consequence. And that's sometimes the biggest challenge is nobody leads you when you're leading yourself. You've got to remember your number one responsibility, which is kind of what I say, pillar number 4, the work we do with clients. How are you leading yourself today? And one of my clients last week made me chuckle because she said, I said, how did Q1 go? Let's debrief Q1 as a whole. And the answer was, I got a C on my report card. I said, why a C? And they're like, because I showed up with C-level work. And I said, how do you feel about that as the CEO of your business? They're like, I'm better than a C-level employee. I need to really focus more. And we talked about how do we support that, right? But I thought I appreciated her candor and her awareness to say, I won't tolerate work that is less than my potential.
Amazing. When did you realize your potential? That, this is my potential, this is what I should be aspiring to achieve. At what age and when?
I think truthfully we struggle to see it at any age, which is ironic. I want people to know about the business I have today. I never had the audacity to think I could do it. It never occurred to me I even would be of value in this. So I didn't see my potential that people see in me. And I joke about this start of my consulting business because I just set out to be a good entrepreneur for myself, selfish. And through coffee conversations, virtual and in person, people kept saying, you're more effective 1 hour a day on business development than I am at 80 hours a week. And I'd be like, well, what the hell are you doing? And I mean that from like a curiosity perspective, what do you do all day? And eventually people would ask, how do you see the world? And I would explain what drives business in the simple terms that I look at the world through. And they'd be like, I can see that. I can actually see you do it. And I can see it's effective. And I'm like, well, go do that. And inevitably time would pass. We would reconnect through a conversation or through proximity at an event. And I'd say, how's it going? They're like, I'm no better. And they're like, but you're getting more momentum. And inevitably it meant people started to say, could I pay you? And I'm like, no, it's weird. I have a job. I have a business. I don't need another thing. And I think it's weird to pay me. Just truly, that was my response until a friend said, maybe you should help them. Maybe that's how the experience, the expertise, the education could be of value to a bigger audience. And they said, you know, God's telling you to keep doing this and you keep ignoring it, and he's going to get more aggressive. Pay attention. And eventually I found myself in a circumstance where I was in a conversation with a peer. It was not a conversation about business. It was more of a conversation about life. And she said, well, how much does it cost? And I said, I don't understand the question. She said, to hire you. I said, to do what? She said, to help me figure out what to say, who to say it to, and how to say it so that I could commercialize my business, because I have been in this business for years and I haven't created any money yet. And I can't do this economically forever. It's not a hobby. I need it to pay for it. And I said, well, what do you want? What would success look like for you? And she told me, and I said, I think I can help. She said, so I'll get my credit card. How much does it cost? And that's how I brought my first client on board. And so I don't know that I ever saw my potential. Truthfully, I think what I have to my advantage is that other people saw it in me and had the courage to say, I see it, and put a light on it. Because when they could do that, I felt like I had an obligation to step into some of it. And it's been a wild ride. But I didn't set out to say, I have potential. Someone said, there's potential here, go serve it. And sometimes I had to be goaded. Sometimes I had to be crash coursed into it. But now I'm a little faster in the responsiveness when someone said, that's a potential opportunity. And I'm like, oh, I see the potential in you here. You belong in that room. You belong in that opportunity. This person's coming to you for a reason. And I'm a little more self-aware of that now, but I still don't think I see my potential the way other people see it. We're too close to it.
Right. So I see a perennial student or a learner here who has a growth mindset and who keeps learning and keeps looking for that mentor who will point you towards the right direction.
Yes. I think the whole point of life is evolution. And so
Absolutely.
I am aware that I have this much knowledge and this many years and this much lived experience, but if I'm still breathing, there's got to be a reason that it must expand.
Totally. I absolutely agree. And you are speaking the language of a transformational leader. So that's another part to it, which leads me to the question, how do you sustain yourself? These years of experience, the fact that you're innovating yourself, not something else, which means you have a lot of energy that you expend on yourself. You have the ability to look inside yourself and understand how to get it done. You are aware that you need a mentor and you go in search of one. So these things require certain amount of sustenance, energy sustenance, mental strength sustenance, mental attitude sustenance. How do you do that?
I have a simple principle that I live by, and it always comes back to, if I'm breathing, there's a reason. And how I can fulfill that gift is by getting off zero. And it's an awareness, and it's partly an awareness more through hardship than the wins. Truthfully, it always comes that way, was that you need to redefine success in the moment. And if you can commit to getting off zero, everything can compound. I get a lot of heat from people when we talk about overwhelm. I irritate my clients because I said, I don't believe in overwhelm when you're pursuing something that is oxygen. It doesn't exist in my world. It doesn't mean there's not a lot to do. It just means that overwhelm to me feels like a delayed decision. And so my philosophies to sustenance is get off zero, make a decision, and then make the decision right. And that can be learn from it, experience it, see it as a stepping stone. And the only way through a storm is through. And as I go through that philosophy, I always have to check in, what does success look like? Because some days success is Mach 10, hair on fire, knocking through the big rocks. And other days it's, I got out of bed, I got dressed, I left the house. I'm aware enough to know that what I want now isn't what I wanted at 35, what I wanted at 25. I also know it will look very different 5 years from now. But the thing I always check with myself in and it's my number one goal for the year, is do I love the life I'm building? That doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean like there's not a lot of effort, but the biggest question is it worth it? And I surround myself with Post-it notes. If you're watching this on video, you'll see them. They're everywhere. And it's like, is it worth it at that price? And if it is, then we pay the toll and we put in the effort. And if it's not worth it, then it's an invitation to reflect, to take a course correction, or to recognize that that dream aspiration may no longer serve the current chapter. And so I always say to people, adjust your speed, but nothing starts from zero. I mean, I think the reason why so many entrepreneurs struggle to commercialize things is because they're constantly doing the hokey pokey. It's 1 foot in, it's 1 foot out. It's a little of this, a little of that. It's a sprint for a week and then it doesn't deliver fast enough. So it's this constant confusion in the physics. And I'm like, well, physics 101, an object in motion stays in motion. So just get off zero and adjust your speed. You'll see more compound effect if you do. And so that's what I also give myself grace with. It just play the compound. I don't know what's happening. It's not my job. I'm not God. He's way ahead of me at this game. And he's like, but I asked you to show up. So did you show up? Sometimes.
Yep. I hear a lot of reflection in you. And you know, the funniest thing is you said reflection, a lot of reflection, and I think a second before that I thought this is so much, you know, she practices reflective reflection. She has a reflective practice, and next moment you use that word. That was the
You
most
called it into me.
coincidental thing ever. So fantastic. I just love this conversation. I think we have come to an end. And how would you like my audience or my listeners to connect with you?
Well, I want to show you how simple this is because, again, I think people make life way more complicated than it needs to be. My name is Christine Campbell Rapin. Rapin is R-A-P-I-N. It's all one word. You can find me on every social platform under my name. You can find me on the World Wide Web under ChristineCampbellRapin.com. I want to invite you to have a conversation and to step into a place where what you dream you can create. If you don't know how, I'm a good person to have at the table, but I will just remind you, you don't have the dream you can't execute. It doesn't exist that way. So why not step in and live the life you really want? Because that's actually what our obligation is, just to show up, make it happen, and really pursue the life we want. You get to do that. It's really cool. Come play.
Absolutely. And that is a game. I totally believe that it is a game. With that, I thank you very much. Your insights, your experiences, the way you have shared them in such not a very heavy, not a very heavy way of sharing your experiences, but yet you have really told us a lot of things which are quite serious, which are quite deep, and which really require a person to think and pause and reflect and act. So yes, beautiful, beautiful knowledge and absolutely deep wisdom here. Thank you, Christine, for being part of Hivin and Vibin with Dr. BB. How do you lead?
Thank you for having me.